I was a young troubadour, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone.
Here we go, another Square Dance Callers talking. Tonight, I have Mr. Ted Kennedy. He's a Square Dance caller. We're going to find out where he's from and a lot more about him. Mr. Kennedy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Charlie. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you finally. We'll start off like I do with everybody. Where are you currently?
Currently in Grand Bay, Alabama. Nobody knows where that is, but it's just a suburb of Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
We're if you go out, leave Mobile, headed to Mississippi. Just before you go to the Mississippi, that's Grand Bay. If you blink your eyes, you're going to miss it.
Okay. How long you been in Mobile or in Alabama?
Well, I'm originally from Alabama. I was born in Alabama, moved away, spent a lot of my life away from Alabama. We moved back here about 12, 13 years ago.
Okay.
When I retired, trying to figure out where we wanted to go. And so we decided I had a club here in Mobile at the time, a Plus DVD club, and all of our friends were there. Our family scattered all over. So, there was no family to go to. So we said, well, where we want to go. And of course, with the club here and everything, most of our friends, our close friends, were here in Mobile area. So we said, well, we'll go to Mobile.
Okay. Very nice. So, born in Alabama and moved away. If you don't mind me, what'd you retire from?
I worked at the Naval Research Laboratory at Stennis Space Center in Mississippi.
Okay.
I went to work for them. I worked for a computer manufacturer for years, and then on government contracts.
Okay.
And then the government wanted me to go to work for them, so I decided to go to work for them, and I wanted to retire from them after 29 years. So.
Wow, very nice. Okay. So at some point you started square dancing. When did you learn to square dance?
Back in the late 70s. Started up in Huntsville, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the heyday of square dancing. I mean, there were clubs around everywhere, and of course, all of us would love to get back there, but I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. But anyway, so I decided looking for something to do, and decided I'd go try square dancing, and got hooked right off the bat,
Okay.
And a gentleman by the name of Bob Christian was the caller up there. Bob was never a big name caller around, but he's a very good caller and an excellent teacher.
Okay.
And so got started with him.
All right. And so with your dancing, how high do you dance level wise?
Through A2.
A2.
Don't do any challenge stuff. I got into A2 and advanced much later in my career. And like I tell everybody, I'm really too old to go beyond that. I'm not a Travis. I'm not a young guy.
I got you. So how far along were you dancing that you decided that you think maybe I would try and do some calling? When did that happen?
It's funny to listen to your podcast and listen to these guys. So many of us the same point. I was about 2 weeks from finishing classes when I decided I wanted to do a singing call. I grew up singing in church, and we had a male chorus in high school and stuff. So I've sung a lot, like that all my life and enjoy it. And with the computer background, the logic, thinking through the figures and stuff, which just kind of came along naturally. And I still remember, most of us can, you probably can too. I can remember the first time I ever called a singing call, Back in the heyday, you went to a big festival anywhere around where all the record labels, all the records were there. Anybody could buy. So I bought one, took it home, put it on my record player. I'd play the vocal side and I'd flip it over and do the instrumental side and, back and forth. And without the benefit now of any sound equipment, no amplifiers, no speakers, anything, just the shower, the closet, kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
And you know how when you hear yourself on a recording, it never sounds like you. You hear yourself on a phone recording or whatever. It's like, man, that's not me. Well, that's kind of called amplification. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 2 weeks before I went to class that night, and I told Bob Chris, I said, Bob, I want to do a singing call tonight. He said, well, I was going to make you do one at graduation anyway, because he knew I was, I had got the bug. So he said, later on tonight, he said, I'll do the pattern and I'll have you singing call. So he got on later that night and he did the pattern. He said, okay, now I'm going to have Ted do a singing call. So I went up there and I put the record on and I put the needle on that record and it started playing and I started singing. My voice comes through that microphone, through the amplifier, through the speakers. It didn't sound anything like me.
Yeah.
My voice went up about 3 octaves. When I got through it, my hand was shaking so bad I couldn't take the needle off the record player. So, but it got better over the years.
I know. I was right at the end of records. I started about 12 years ago, give or take, and mostly records. Then it was kind of turning over to digital and laptops. But yeah, everybody has that story where you can't get the needle on the edge of the record, because it's just so nervous. And I still get that way on occasion. If I'm in a strange place or if I'm at a club or a national convention, if I look out and I don't see anybody that I know, I'm shaking for a minute. But now, then you go into cruise control once you start going and you kind of have an idea where you are. But that first initial walk up there, that's something. Oh, do you remember what song you did?
I do. It was a Red Boot song called Teddy Bear.
Red Boot Teddy Bear. Okay.
Yeah, and it has been redone. Bob Elling bought the rights for all the Red Boot stuff. On Riverboat, he's releasing them, and that's what got me into recording. Was he bought the music, the rights to the music,
right,
but he didn't have rights to the vocals, so he had to get somebody to redo all the vocals. Okay. And so he's been, if you notice on Riverboat, he's been re-releasing a lot of Red Boot stuff. So I started recording a lot of the vocals for him on Riverboat, but they're all Red Boot songs. But yeah, Teddy Bear, I remember it. Oh man! And in fact, I'm probably going to get a digital version of it. I've still got the record, but, but I don't, use the amplifier with the turntable anymore, so I don't use it. But I'm probably going to wind up getting get him to send me the actual original Teddy Bear from there, because it was a pretty song, cute little song.
Sure.
That's just nostalgia,
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I still go back. Of course, it wasn't so long ago for me, but I still do. One of my first songs, and I don't know what label it was Jambalaya. And I'll break it out on occasion. My wife has heard it enough that she's like, please stop doing that song. It's just kind of like that song you played a groove into the record and you're just, I can't take this anymore. So, but still love it, man. And that's just one that'll stick with me. That and Jimmy Buffett, Changes in Latitude. Gosh, I did that so long ago and love it. The music's fantastic on. I don't know what the label is. So when you started calling out, you did just sing and call at some point, and of course with the computer background, you had the patterns. Any influences besides the original guy who taught you to dance, caller wise?
Oh yeah, and over the years, there's been many. Early on, my idol, if you will, was Daryl McMillan.
Okay.
And, still love Daryl to this day, and every now and then I'll get up around Decatur and he and I'll get together and do a dance together, or always see him at Alabama State Convention and stuff. But he was kind of my idol. When I came back from, I got started calling, okay, and I had a teenage club up in Huntsville, Alabama, and I had them for a couple of years, and then I went overseas with on a contract in the middle of the South Pacific in Marshall Islands, a little place called Kwajalein. Kid everybody, it was they used to fire missiles from Vandenberg in California, and they would land in the atoll there. And basically, it was they would tell us where they were supposed to land, and we'd tell them where they actually landed, kind of thing. Yeah. So we were kind of the target. They were shooting missiles, and we were the target. It's a big area. We'd track them coming in and everything. But anyway, but the whole island is 1.5 miles by 2 miles. That's it.
Jeez.
But we had a square dance club. called the Atoll Lakes. And so I went over there, but when I came back, I moved to Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Okay.
And Daryl at that time was in Panama City area. He had us all in Lynn Haven there, and got to know Daryl very well, and I was just marveled at his capabilities, and so he was a big influence on me early on, and someone I always aspired to be like.
Yeah.
I had those, but over the years I've had a number of people that I've been able to work with and to hear and listen, and a lot of the callers, I've been to several colleges. The first college I ever went to was back in the late '70s. Outside of Chicago, the three clinicians, Bill Peters, Dave Taylor, and Lee Cotton.
Very nice.
And I enjoyed all of them, but I just feel so lucky to have been able to go and be there for Lee and go through that college with him, because to me, he's the master, as we all know.
Sure.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so many things have been written that he wrote that, but it was funny. He was, we had, as most of the college schools do, they have a square of dancers in, for us greenies. And I was like most of the people there, I was as green as could be,
Yeah.
And Lee used to love to get us up there, and he would get them in some gosh awful position, then hand us the microphone and say, "Okay, get them out." It's like, sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But Steve, his son, he didn't fall far from that tree, man. I tell you, it's choreography and everything. I mean, he's just like his dad, But I feel so that was a big influence on me, being able to do that, the guys at Royal, Tony and Jerry Story and all. I worked with Jerry for several years before his passing up at Pride, and man, it was just a joy, to work with him, and his mind works so much different than anybody else's,
Sure.
And so a lot of those guys, but there's so many people, that have influence. But Daryl was the big one, I think, for me.
Okay. Well, that's a good one to have. That's a good one to have right there, Mr. McMillan, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about Daryl, though. He
Yeah.
said he didn't do it. He didn't do it. But I lived in Fort Walton Beach, as I said, and Daryl at the club in Panama City outside there, and he called me up one time and said, "Hey, I got to go out of town this weekend. Can you come to my club? The club danced on Friday night." And it's like, "Okay, Daryl, how much you want me to pay you to come over and do it?" Okay, So, but anyway, I was so pleased that he would call me. In fact, I've got here in my office. I've still got the contract framed that he sent me, and the check. But anyway, so the dance started at 8:00, and so I drove from Fort Walton Beach over there. Got there about 7:45, get enough time to get in, get stuff set up and everything. So I arrived at the dance. His wife, Ann, she meets me at the door. "Where you been?" I said, "Ann, what do you mean? I mean, the dance starts at 8:00. She said, "Oh no, Daryl does a plus workshop from 7:30 to 8. He failed to tell me."
Gosh.
I'm not prepared to do any workshop. I'm running in trying to, get equipment set up and everything. He just forgot to tell me. He didn't do it intentionally, but it just kind of blew the whole evening,
Oh, sure. Yeah, all your plans go out the window when that happens.
Yeah, you got it, man. Oh, I tell you.
Gosh.
But I found actually from that dance, I learned a very good lesson, Charlie, because being young and the career wise, when I left, I went over there and said, "I'm going to be Daryl McMillan. I'm going to be as good as Daryl. I'm going to be Daryl McMillan." But I learned a lesson: be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. And that's stuck with me all these years, because it was an okay dance, but it wasn't one of my best dances. Okay, for a number of
Yes.
there. But part of it was I wasn't mature enough in my calling career to realize that I needed to be me. Okay.
Yep.
In fact, and that actually goes back to the college with Lee Cotman. Lee Cotman, one of the first things he told us was, he says, "I can't sing." And what he really meant was he was okay singer. Okay, he could handle it, but he wasn't a Tony Oxidine or some of these people who's got the really great singing voices, you know.
Right.
But he said, but I'll tell you, and he did, how to handle that. And he said the biggest thing is pick the music that works for you. You know, I mean, how many records have you got that you heard somebody do and said, "Oh man, that's great." You went out and bought it, brought it home, and said, "I can't do this for heck." You know,
Yep.
I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I got a few of those.
oh yeah, we all do. You know, because we heard somebody do them, and it was great. But it's just not you. I mean, everybody. I don't know what your genre of music is you like to do. I'm a more country person. You know, I like the country music. I like the gospel music. Uh, I'm not the big ballad guys. You know, you need the Tony Oxidine kind of voices for that, or
Right. I agree.
Tom Miller or somebody like that that can handle that and do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to pick what you can do and what works for you. You know,
Yes.
and so but I learned that lesson. You know, so hey, that's part of the growing part.
Very nice. I do. I ask for advice for callers and all that, and be yourself. That's really good. It is. The years that I've been doing it, I've gone to caller schools, I've gone to conventions, and I'll record a lot of stuff on my phone. Somebody doing patter, and I've learned the hard way. I'll go down. I'm like, man, I really like that. I like what they did there, and I'll walk into my club or whatever, and I'll have a couple of squares just staring at me because if you don't present some things in the right order in the right way, it's not going to work for you. I can watch Tony Oxendine do it and it's beautiful, and then I go up and do it, and people are like, what are you trying to do? So yeah,
That's right.
you got to work up to certain things.
You know, I think all callers ought to record themselves. In fact, I did a thing over the Louisiana State Convention. I had some guys there, and we were talking about calling and everything. And this one guy, he's really never going to be a great caller. He's just not, But anyway, but we were talking, and so I told him. I said, and I told the whole group. I said, every now and then, I said, just record yourself, play it back, and listen to it and say, does that make me want to get up and dance?
Yep.
If it doesn't, then that's not something you should do, regardless of how much you like the song or whatever.
Yeah.
If it doesn't make you want to get up on the floor and dance, then it's not something you need to be doing. So
very nice. That's fantastic. That's good stuff. So you've recorded quite a few records, singing calls, and what have you. Do you have any favorite just that kind of stand out to you? You're a country gospel type. Any names of songs you like?
The ones that I've recorded, of course, I did all this stuff for Riverboat, the old Red Boot stuff, and that was just whatever he sent me. I did wasn't something. But then I started doing some stuff for Tom Manning on Solid Gold.
Solid Gold, okay.
And there, I basically either send him the music or the title of the music that I want, or I go directly to Circle Left and have Mike up there do it for me. And he does a great job there in Nashville recording the music. I'll send him the original and he'll just adapt it for square dancing. But the first thing that I did for Tom was a gospel song, I Shall Not Be Moved. And I love that song. It was a great gospel song. I've always liked it. It was originally done, on, what was the label? What was the Quadrille, an old.
Oh yeah, I've heard that label.
But it's that label is no longer there, and the song wasn't available. So I said, Tom, let's redo it. It needed, the music needed to be redone anyway, And so he got with them and got it done, and that's probably one of my favorites that I like to do.
Nice. Okay. Now, and if you can't pull one out immediately, I understand. Do you have a favorite call, whatever level it may be? Just an individual, what you like to call?
I like to sometimes if I can get the floor to do it, I like the fraction box call.
Fraction.
Like
okay.
Partner trade once and a half kind of thing.
Okay.
And it leads you in, but I picked simple things so that I can just about get any floor through it.
Okay.
But things that are fractionalized, you can try half sachet stuff that I like to do, but it all boils down to what can the dancers do.
Right. Exactly. Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, I like the fractionalized things, and I like to do them, out of position, or boy, girl kind of thing, whatever. But I have to use good judgment. The fact that you can doesn't mean that you should.
Yes, sir. I've heard that. Yes, sir.
And so, you got to gauge the floor or the club that you're working with. But I like that. I like the fractionalized a lot of stuff, and do that. Scoot back once and a half. Fractionalize it.
Gotcha.
Two-face line kind of thing. And most of those are things that you can really walk them through, get them through in a short fashion, if they're reasonable dancers, and kind of work it on the floor without doing a half-hour workshop to get them through something. Okay, because when I go to call a dance, I'm going to call a dance. I'm not going to call a workshop. If I'm going to do a workshop, then that's a whole different.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Thing. So, and I'm like most of the guys, I think too. I'll take I do a lot of directional calling, and I'll take things. If I'm doing a mainstream dance, I'll take things out of the plus list and call them directionally.
Gotcha.
Get them through. They don't realize what, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly legal. If you don't give it a name, you're perfectly legal. If you call it direction, get them through it, then hey, you're good. Or the same way at a plus dance, some of the A moves, take them off the A list and bring them down and just call them directionally.
Very nice. Okay.
So those are things that I like to do with the dancers.
Okay.
My philosophy with the dancers is it's a bend but don't break philosophy.
Okay.
I want to start them off here and then bring them up to the point they're comfortable in, and then try to push them a little bit beyond that if I can, but never get to the point where I break them.
Okay.
Makes sense. I say to me, it's a bend but don't break philosophy, and so that's what I try to do with the dancers. I had a guy years ago, Paul Markham. I don't know if you know Paul or not, but he's out of the Nashville area, and Paul for years traveled all over the country, and he gave us some very good advice. He did a college clinic in Florida, for the Northwest Florida Callers Association years ago when I was a member of that. And he talked about, when he was traveling all over. So he said, I may walk into a dance, I don't know anybody there. Okay. He says, the first tip, he said, I won't do anything except modules. I won't try to sight call or do anything. I won't do anything that's really that unusual. At two reasons. One, he said, I want to find out who can dance, because then now I can sight call if I know who can dance and kind of what their levels are. He said, but the biggest thing, he said, if you go to that dance, he said, after the first tip, you want to leave them leaving the floor saying, man, I'm going to dance to this guy. As opposed to blowing them out of the water and then leaving after the first tip saying, man, that guy can't call, I'm not going to dance to him. I mean, so that's the process that he used, and I took it to heart, and I still remember it to this day. If I go into a dance where I don't really know the dancers, or if I have, even I know a lot of the dancers, but there are people there I don't know and who don't know me, then I still want to do that because I want them to leave the floor after that first tip feeling good, and the last tip the same way. Send them home feeling good. So that was some good advice that he gave, and I still remember to this day. And but he's no longer active calling all that much, just in the local area up there now. But he doesn't travel as much.
Yeah, one thing I've always been told is one of the last songs you do, make it something that somebody will be singing as they're going out the door. They don't have to be 100% successful, but they got to have fun. And, if they're standing there for 10, 12 seconds or lost, my favorite is every now and then I'll see somebody, it's usually a guy, just throw their hands up in there. And I thought, nope, he's gone. I don't know if I can get that one back, you know. So you have to adjust your calling, but when you see that in the middle of a dance, you're like, uh-oh.
Yep.
And you know it's not you so much, but maybe it's the way you're presenting it. So that's great words of advice, man. That's what I'm looking for on these things. Um, so obviously when you were working, you did a lot of traveling, calling. Where all have you called? Or all over the world, or where?
Uh, I called in Germany and Italy when we were over there working. When I travel, and I travel a lot with my work over the years, and once I started square dancing, in fact, the guys quit asking me after a while when we get through work, and that, what you gonna do tonight? You know, they're all going out bar hopping and whatever, you know. And I said, hey, I'm going to go find a square dance club, which I did, you know. And I was always welcome, always had a good time.
Nice.
And the next morning, I could always remember what I did.
Yeah,
Unlike them.
it helps. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So we did some work in Germany and Italy, and so I go find a square dance club there. In fact, it was funny. My first experience in Germany was it was a young caller. He was actually a college student, and we were up in a part of Italy that was still pretty much, excuse me, Germany, which is pretty much all German. You know, very little American influence. When I went to the club, the only two people in there who could speak English were me and the caller. Okay. And so he's teaching a class and he needed someone to fill in. So I did. But fortunately, he had to tell him in English what he was going to teach him beforehand, because otherwise I wouldn't have understood a single thing, because he had to give him all the instructions in German.
Very nice. Yeah.
But fortunately, he told him beforehand what he was doing. So I didn't go on. But yeah, but that was good. And you know, of course, all over the U.S. we traveled. A lot of us in California, San Diego, Utah, Massachusetts, Virginia. You know, every place I've been, I would find a square dance club.
Very nice. That's the best way to do it. That's fantastic.
Well, you know, for a number of reasons, because one, it gave me something to do, which was enjoyable, but it allowed me to, you know, they always ask you to call a tip. So, you know, it was always kind of fun to do that and get some exposure there with the dancers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So the guy that taught me to dance and got me started calling, one of the things he always says, he says, don't ever go to a dance without your microphone and your records.
Yeah, no, that's one thing. And they always told me, they said, and even some of the people I knew, they would tell you, hey, bring all your stuff, but leave it in your car until they ask you, you know. And I always did, you know. When I was first starting out, every weekend night I was on the move, you know, going to people's clubs that I knew, just because I knew I'd probably get to go up and do one. And so, yeah, and that's always welcome when you have that. That's a great way to learn.
Oh, that's a great way to learn. It's the only way to learn.
It is. And of all those places, do any of the halls stand out to you as just a great place, whether the way it looked or sounded? I have a couple just because of the dance floor and the type. Anything stand out to you?
I got two halls that basically I enjoy tremendously. The first one I used to go up there. I haven't been up there in several years. Used to go up to Fontana, Fontana, North Carolina.
I have not been.
Old dance hall. Oh, this thing. There was a square dance hall back in the heyday when they used live bands every week. The pictures on the walls of the old. I mean, it goes back, you know, into the 30s and what I mean. You know, there's history there like you wouldn't believe. Wooden floor that, you know, you just kind of sit around and wish those floors could talk.
Yep.
Because the stories they would tell. I mean, you can sit on the side when the dancers are dancing. If you got a pretty full floor, you can actually see the floor give. You know, I mean, it's just an old good wood floor that just, you know, just go. So I love going up to Fontana. And of course, I know it sounds like I'm plugging, but if the hall at Pride.
Oh yeah.
That, of course, Jerry Story and Tony built that hall, so it was designed by some guys that knew what they were doing. But the floor, the sound there is excellent, you know, and so it's one that's made for square dancing as opposed to your normal. gym or whatever, where the acoustics are, you got to fight that battle, before you can get things going, And so those two halls, because they were set up for that purpose, I really did enjoy them, and those are some of my favorites. Those two right there, I guess, is probably my favorite.
Yeah, no, I've never had the opportunity. The Fontana, they still do the Fontana Dam Dance up there. I haven't got to go up there yet. But Pride 2 years ago, I got to go to Pride, and Tony, Tony and Jack and Ted were doing their plus, and they let me go up there and do a tip. One of my singing calls and all that. And first, the floor's fantastic, but that's another time where if it had been a record, I would have scratched the record trying to put it down. Although I know those guys, but the dancing, the people that go to Pride, the dance level can be so high. Man, I don't want to get up here and do something and be like, what is this guy? But it went fine. I did a little fatter and a little singing call, and it worked out. So, but yeah, I don't think about that one that often. But Pride is fantastic.
So you just mentioned something, Charlie, that gave a good lesson that I learned, and a lot of this stuff I learned the hard way. I always tell people when I'm talking to new callers or whatever, I said, look, if I tell you not to do something, it's because I've done it. Okay. But when you get that opportunity to do that, yes, particularly early on in your calling career, it doesn't matter so much the complexity as if the dancers are successful with what you do. I've seen callers get up there and try to say, now I'm going to do something really tricky and whatever, and the dancers can't handle it.
Yeah.
So, they say, hey, this back to the same old thing. Hey, I'm going to dance to this guy,
Yeah.
So it's not so much the complexity as if they can dance to you and have a good time. And so in some cases, it's the old KISS theory, keep it simple.
Absolutely. Keep it simple.
And make sure they're successful.
I agree. Man, that's good stuff. What we had talked about earlier too, as much as the traveling and all that. So you've got a cruise coming up 1st of February, week of February. Now, and we'll talk about that in a second too, because I'm going on the cruise. I'm just dancing on it. Have you done cruises before, calling on?
Oh yeah. I've done several cruises. I've done several out of New Orleans and the Western Caribbean. I did the last cruise that Jerry Story went on. He and I and Kurt Braffett and Bob Ass. It was Alaska cruise, and we left out of Vancouver and went up and then took the train across to Fairbanks, which is where the state convention was, and we called the state convention there. And it was the last cruise that Jerry did. And I'm so happy I got to do that with him. So yeah, I've done the Alaskan cruise twice, Sweathead's cruise. I've done the Jamaican thing, the Western Caribbean, probably 3 or 4 times out of there. I did the Bahamas out of Jacksonville one year with a local guy down here. And so, but this is the first time I've been on the Eastern Caribbean. So it's kind of fun. I love the Square cruises. Now this one is going to be a little bit different because we're actually going to have room to dance. So many times on the cruises, because particularly if it's a much smaller ship, you're dancing in lounges and things during the day when they're not occupied. But most of them, because they're smaller ships, everything's bolted down, so you can't move tables around. Chairs and things around to make room. You're generally restricted to a small area, whatever their dance floor normally would be in that lounge, which is normally not that big when you go to talking about square dancing, But on this one, we've actually got plenty of room. It should work out very well. And with that conference room, of course, the carpet's not the best surface, but hey, adapt and overcome,
Sure.
But yeah, that's going to be a good thing.
No, it is. And, I got, I'd never been on a square dance cruise of any kind, dancing or anything. And a couple of years ago at Caller Lab, I was talking to Jack Platties and Tony, and Jack's like, hey, are you going on this cruise with us? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he starts naming off the callers are going to be on it. I was like, oh, let me go find my wife. So I had to go run her down, and within about 10 days, we'd put our deposit down on it. So really looking forward to it. We've done a few cruises, my wife and I, over the years, but just cruising. And we haven't been to the Eastern like we're going on this one. So looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Now, some callers do, some callers don't. And it's got to where people ask me about it now and ask me to make sure I ask about it. Do you have a favorite or any favorite get outs?
One from a let's just take it from a zero box, okay?
Mhm.
If you do a right and left through, veer to the left, Ferris wheel, everybody veer left, everybody extend. Now you got a two-face line.
Mhm.
And the girls trade, and then the girls run left, and the boys trade twice, and you got the yellow man left right there.
Okay.
So I like to use that one. But just trying to think of, I mean, generally when I'm calling, things come to your mind that don't normally when you're just talking. So
Oh, I agree, and I try and catch. I didn't ask you before we started recording. I try and remind everybody, hey, I'm going to ask you this if you want to think about it. So I caught you cold on that, and it is. I talked to. I had a weekend a few weeks ago. Ted Lizotte and Tony, they have their New Hampshire weekend at the farm, and I went up there for that. And Ted did something where he said it's like sinners do half of a load the boat, Alaman left. And that was not the setup. I can't remember it, but it was something about a load the boat. And when he got done, I said, hey, man, what's the setup for that? And he said, I just saw it. And I was like, what do you mean you just saw it? He said, well, when they came into the middle, I saw the Alaman left from the half a load the boat or whatever. And I was like, are you kidding me? So, a lot of it is on the fly. And I do that because a lot of mine is sight-ish calling. And when it's dancers that I know, I'm just calling along and I'm like, oh, there it is. And then, then I can get out in about 2 calls.
now, if you're doing the plus, one thing I like is kind of cute to do it from a static square, do an Alaman left, all 8 spin the top. When you meet your partner, freeze. Now just the head couple swing through. Now all the boys run, and you'll have a line of 4. If you pass through, wheel and deal, zoom, new centers, you can do anything. You can pass the ocean, explode, and star through, and you're back home.
Okay.
But doing that swing through from that setup, after on the all 8 spin the top works good. The other one that I like to do, now you got my mind going now.
Yeah. Let it go. Let it go.
From a zero away, okay, boys on the ends, you're just, all 8 circulate once and a half. All 8 spin the top. Do a right and left grain.
Gotcha.
So but the thing is that the color and I've got Colorama. I don't know if you've ever seen Colorama or not, but I use and I use Taminations a lot. But to do this, but sometimes you just got to sit down with the checkers and move them,
Yep.
But I use all 3 to work on things, and I steal a lot of stuff, as we all do.
Sure.
But I spend a lot of time looking at what other people are doing, listen to what other people are doing. I love the fact that a lot of the record labels now are putting vocals on their pattern records.
Yeah.
Because it's a good resource. For someone, particularly new folks, that's a good resource to go and look at this stuff and hear these guys do it,
Yeah.
And so, for a long time, pattern records, they never did vocals on notes. It was always just a singing calls. But I think that that's a great resource. But it's I go everywhere I can and find stuff to go. Or if I hear somebody do something, they want to do Tim Mariner. I don't know if you knew Tim or not, but he's around. Okay, he's the one that first time I ever heard him do Cowboy, I went home and broke my record. Because nobody could do Cowboy like Tim Mariner. Absolutely nobody. will ever do that like Tim Mariner. But anyway, he did something that was really cute one time, and so I kind of afterwards I said, Tim, I said, what was said of that? So it was sides flutter wheel, not if I remember it right. No, I'm not gonna mess it up, Charlie. So I'm not gonna go there. I'll
Okay.
like think about it, okay?
Okay.
But there was a move years ago, and I can't remember the name of it. And it was there was a name for it, and I can't remember, but I use it all the time. And I use it just, hey, everybody do your part, okay?
Mhm.
Head square through 4, sides face, grand square. Now heads cloverleaf, come down the middle. Sides are still doing the grand square. Heads
Right.
come down the middle, pass through, separate, go around 1, come down the middle, square through 3, and you're right back to your corner in a static square. You know? And there was a name for that, and I can't remember what the name of it is. But anyway, but it's a neat little thing, and dancers,
Okay.
and you can talk the dancers through that. You
Right.
can talk them through it. You don't have to give it a name. And I love those things that I can do that with it. I can talk them through it.
That's awesome.
But then I can do it with anybody. But,
Yeah, to tell you, Tim Mariner actually taught me to dance originally.
really?
Yep, 28 years ago. And I know that because my son was 3 when my wife and I took lessons out of Savannah, Georgia. And Tim, who he wasn't just starting out, but he was young. We're talking about 28 years ago. And I didn't know callers. My in-laws got me involved in square dance and said, hey, come take lessons. And Tim was not the club caller. They just hired him to come and teach us because we were in Savannah, close to South Carolina. And so he came down, and I remember I said, hey, can I learn to do some of that singing stuff? And he gave me a cassette tape with a bunch of his singing calls. He said, go memorize these. And just like everything in life, I didn't memorize anything. And once we finished lessons, I never saw him for years after that. And then I actually took a caller school the year that he passed away in North Carolina. Hellman Paul Hensey and another Gus Baker, I think was his name, out of North Carolina. It was Gus, but yeah, it was at his house. He had a 2-car garage that was turned into a dance hall. And Tim did that, and he passed away probably about 5 months after that. So yeah, I knew Tim a little bit. He was fantastic. Loved listening to him.
Oh man, I remember I can't remember which national convention it was, but it was back again in the heyday of square dancing. And I don't know if you ever knew a guy there. There was another young guy at the time named Craig Rowe. I think was out of Georgia, I believe, but I'm not sure. He's not calling anymore. But they were both about the same age. And Tim was, he was probably in his early 20s. I mean, he was young. I used to kid him a lot too. I said, Tim, I said, you're never going to be a caller. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, first of all, I said, you don't weigh near enough. I said, you've got all your hair.
He's got all his hair, yeah.
Young, and all your hair is the same color. I said, you ain't gonna never make
right
it.
There with you. Right there with you.
But at this national convention, I was so impressed with Tim at that time and Craig Rowe. Like I said, they were just really young. But that was when we had real large halls of teenage dancers. And the first club I ever called for was a teenage club. So I've always had a soft spot in my heart for teenage clubs.
Okay.
But they at the national convention, they would have a separate hall for the teenagers. And these kids would go in there and they would start at 10 o'clock in the morning and they'll be there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. They would never leave. One caller would finish, they'd just sit down on the floor, wait for the next one to come in, and then they would back up and they're square going, And a lot of callers it seemed like they didn't really want to go in there and call for them. But Tim and Craig would go in there, and like I say, they were not that much older than these kids that were in there. They would have them hanging from the ceiling, and that was the future of square dance. I mean, everybody should have been, to me, beating the door down to go in there and call for them, but
absolutely.
It wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. They would rather be out in the big main hall where you've got, 50, 60, 70 squares of dancers, whatever. And I understand that because that's their business. That was their business, okay? And that's where they made their money. They didn't make their money off of these teenagers, okay? But again, that was the future of square dancing. And it didn't bother Tim and Craig to go in there. And boy, they would just have those kids rocking and rolling. So I got a lot of respect for Tim at that time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and it was shocking, I mean, we don't know how any of us have how much time we have left. But yeah, that kind of caught everybody because Tim was pretty good shape, physically to look at and everything else. So it was kind of shocking when I found out on Facebook, of course. One morning I got up and I looked at my phone. I'm like, wait a minute, this can't be right. So because that was one of my goals in life was to call a dance or a tip with Tim Mariner just because I met him so long before, and of course I never got the opportunity at that point. So.
Well, I never got the opportunity either, and I feel that I missed out on that. I really wish I had been able to do that.
That's awesome. Well, Square, I mean, and I usually ask for advice for young callers and all that, but you've just been giving it all. I mean, anything else? I mean, you've been giving me a lot with be yourself and, make sure the dancers are successful. Any other advice for young callers, whether it be somebody just starting out or somebody who's been doing it 12 years?
Well, other than the things I've already said, Charlie, you got to work at it. I've had so many people over the years that have said, "Oh man, I want to learn to call, whatever," and I said, "Fine, I'll work with you." And then it turns out that all they want to do is sing. They really don't want to work at it.
Yep.
And I lose patience pretty quickly with guys that don't want to work at it. You got to spend the time. You got to be able to do it. And I had a young kid out of Louisiana, the young college kid. He checks all the boxes. If you say, okay, we want to get a young caller going, and he was young, good looking, has a good voice, he's smart, and he wanted to pick up on it, So I said, fine, and I got music that I let him use and stuff, and worked with him. But I told him up front, I said, now you're gonna have to spend a lot of time with this, and I said, I'm not sure how much time you're gonna have, because school has to come first, and then once you finish school, you're gonna get a job, and job's gonna have to come first. And I said, you're gonna meet some pretty young lady, you're gonna wind up getting married, and next thing you know, the kids are coming along, and, so but you got to be willing to spend the time. In fact, his mother. I talked to her quite a bit at the Mobile National. She was over there because he went to the Grand Square Collar School prior to
GSI.
And anyway, so she talked to me a bit, got in between times, and she said, he's wanting to go out and buy a new microphone and all this stuff and everything. And I said, you need to wait and make sure that this is something that he's going to really do before you spend a lot of money on it, Of course, this kid is lucky, man. At that school, Tony comes in, and Tony had gotten a bunch of refurbished computers, laptops, and from somebody, I guess, up in North Carolina or wherever. And he was going to basically give away, or we're going to raffle them off. Mm-hmm. But he said, how many of you guys don't have a laptop dedicated to square dance music? And this young kid, of course, didn't, and some other people didn't anyway. Well, Tony just gave them one right off the bat. So he got a brand new computer. And Scott Bennett brought in a brand new Yak Stack. And he was going to raffle on. Mm-hmm. Well, this kid bought a ticket. He won the Yak Stack. I felt like asking Jack. Jack said, "Hey, Jack, have you got a spare amplifier around there?" This kid, it's the only thing you can get.
I know it. Wow.
But they're going to have to spend the time, and if you're not willing to do it, then don't pick the mic up. I mean, it just, and I'll work with anybody, and that I can that has an interest that will put forth the effort. But like most people, I don't have time to spend for someone that's really not going to work at it. And I've run into a lot of those over the years because so many people, and I put myself somewhat in this category again. I think most, not all, but most square dance callers are really, in my view, frustrated singers. We want to be singers, and we're really not good enough. Okay, so this is our 10 minutes of fame. Okay, well, and some are very good, but most of us are kind of mediocre. Okay, kind of thing, and so that's what they want to really what they want to do. But to me, that's not the sweat. It's the hard part is the pattern and getting to where you can do that. And again, like I said earlier, I always recommend, hey, record yourself, listen to yourself, and listen to other people, and work at your craft. If you don't work at it, you're not going to be successful. It's like anything else. If it's worth doing, it's worth working at. And so that's probably the best advice I can give most of them is do that, do your homework, do yourself, don't try to be somebody you aren't, and pick the songs. Pick the songs that you do. To me, I mean, in fact, Marshall Flippo. I always said Marshall Flippo to me was the Willie Nelson of square dance callers.
Okay.
Marshall could not hardly carry a tune in a bucket, but his pattern was so damn good nobody cared. Okay, but but to me again, I talk about Willie Nelson. But to me, Willie Nelson is not a good singer.
No, he's
But
not.
nobody in my view can do Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain like Willie Nelson.
Yep.
That's Willie Nelson's song.
Yep.
So find your song. Find the things that work for you, that you feel comfortable with, and try to, when you go to, I tell them, when you go to do a dance, you get an opportunity, try to feel as comfortable as you can. You're always going to be nervous when you're young, but the more time you spend studying and working on your craft, the more prepared you will be. And calling square dance is just like anything else, like public speaking or anything else. If you know your subject matter, you won't be near as nervous, regardless of how young you are. But if you don't feel comfortable that you know it, you'll be nervous as a cat in a long tail, cat in a room full of rocking chairs. But feel comfortable with what you're doing. But that's the best advice I can give folks. And because I've gone into times when I didn't do it, I didn't feel that comfortable with it, but I did it anyway. So.
That is outstanding words right there, sir. Yeah, I starting out, the gentleman who got me started, he's passed away now. His name's Ray Monty, and he let me do singing calls for about 3 months. And I had a couple singing calls. And again, I'm not a great singer by any means, but I found a couple that I was pretty good at country wise in the genre. And then he was like, "Hey, you want to try some pattern?" I was like, "Absolutely not." Because I knew pattern would not be easy. And I was successful, and people really came up there, "Hey, well, you can do this song again for." And so people liked it. And I thought, I don't want to go up there and, cross the sides and stuff like that and have people stand it. But Ray told me, he said, pattern is what's going to get you jobs if you want to do this. You've got to have good pattern. And so I took that to heart. And so for a couple years, it was just a disaster. It was stop and go. But it was like you said, once I got to learn the calls and learn more about it besides just dancing them and knew what to look for, hey, on a right and left through, Dixie style's a good go if you haven't done it all night, so just little things that flow together. So, yeah, and you're more comfortable for sure. I'll walk in anywhere now. I'm nervous because I don't know the dancers, but once you hit that, when you hit that first Alaman left, and you're like, all right, I got this now. You kind of go on cruise control.
You establish a rapport with the dancers. That's what you have to do. I had a guy years ago. He was actually technically a very good caller over in Louisiana, but Mike, she used to like to say, "Oh, it's a game. It's me against them." And I would say, "Okay, Mike, that may be true," but I said, "You just have to remember who has to win."
Yeah.
The dancers have to win.
They have to win. That's correct.
You can approach it that way if you want, and to a certain extent, I guess we all do. But we have to keep in mind, and he didn't do that. He would call stuff, and the floor would be broke down, and he would keep on going, and well, you ought to be able to do it from there, kind of thing. And that's one of those things where you can do it, but should you do it? It's a difference, and sometimes you just shouldn't do it. Okay.
Sure.
But it is. I keep a list. I still keep a list a lot of times, and particularly advanced. I do just up on the table with me, just as a reminder myself of what things. I'll sometimes look back and say, well, what haven't I done? Okay, off this list, because I really try to, if I'm doing advanced or plus or whatever level, is try to over the night is go through and hit every call. Now some I'll hit more than others, obviously, but I hate, and when I teach, I do the same thing. When I teach beginner class, my sequence is always the same thing. The first tip of the night, after the first night or two, okay, is the first tip or so is always a review. I'll do everything they've done from day one. Okay, I'll go over it, except for what I taught them the previous week. And then I'll reteach what I taught the week before. And then I'll teach new stuff. But so it's always a review, reteach, teach progression for me. That's what I use. And the review thing is to force me to go over and call everything they've had, because otherwise you'll get in a point where you'll skip over something they haven't heard it in months and months, and all of a sudden you throw it out there. You can't expect them to do it.
Right.
So by doing that review process every week, the way I do it, I force myself to make sure that they do every movement they've had since day one, at least once. A lot of them they'll do more than that, but otherwise I'll forget. And that's the same way I do with the list. If I'm calling a dance, it's just, hey, now the other thing too, Charlie, to me, and it's just me, I guess, but the square dancing is probably the biggest percentage of square dance is social. Okay, socializing with a dancer. My goal, and I pretty much get to do it, but I'm not sure on this cruise, which is as many dancers we got, I'll get a chance to do it. But if I'm doing a dance, I would like to, throughout the night sometime, just go down and say hello to every dancer that's there. I want them to know that, hey, I'm glad you're here.
Yep.
Because if you weren't here, they wouldn't need me. Okay. So many times I think sometimes callers get, they get sidetracked. And and some people, they're maybe at a stage in their game where they don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's not I need to do it. It's I want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I want to have that rapport with the dancers, and I want to feel comfortable with them, even if I didn't know them before I walked in the room. I want to get around and speak to them and say, hey guys, thanks for coming. Yeah. And just be, and I'll tell them that's another advice I'll give to new dancers. Do that. Make sure you get around and speak to these people. These are the people that get you here. These are the people who's going to book you later on. You need to get to know these people, and just don't assume, hey, I'm the big caller. They can come and talk to me if they want to talk to me, whatever. Mm-hmm. I know I'm going to them, and every opportunity I get, because I want to establish that connection with the dancers, and that helps me. It makes me feel more comfortable then. If I'm a little bit uneasy about the dancers or with the level I'm on, mm-hmm. that helps to ease me a bit. I feel like I know these guys, and now they're my friends for sure. Yeah. We're not enemies; those are my friends. Okay, yeah. So I feel a lot easier about what I'm doing. And hey, we've all screwed up every now and then. Okay, it's going to happen. I mean, I've seen everybody screw up. I've seen Tony Oxendine screw up. Okay, I'm not a lot, but I have had seen him done, and I think I've circled the calendar every time he's done it. I don't have a lot of circles on the calendar. Okay, but my point is everybody does it. You have a lapse in memory or whatever that causes it. So, but then the dancers understand. Okay.
Yep.
Because they're not perfect either, and I was talking about Paul Markham. A funny story with Paul. The joke he used to tell. He was at a dance and he told this story, and to me it was hilarious. Paul at that point was traveling all over the country, calling dances, whatever. And he said, he told me that. He said, yeah, I said, we moved out and bought a place in the country. He said, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. And he said, we thought we'd just go into chicken business. And he said, he was off calling a dance somewhere, and he was talking to his wife, and she says, hey, I found this guy. He's got all these chickens for sale, and he's got 2 roosters. And he said, I told her, I said, honey, I said, the roosters are pretty frisky. He said, I don't think we need 2 roosters. He said, I got home, and that's what she said. She bought all the chickens and the 2 roosters. And I said, honey, didn't you understand what I was trying to tell you about the roosters? She said, yeah, but I was afraid one of them might become a square dance caller and be gone all the time.
That's good.
That was good. I died laughing. He had some good stories to tell.
No, it's good. That's the downside is, it's certainly nowadays it's tough. You can't take your wife with you. Of course, my wife doesn't want to go all the time with me, depending on where I'm going. If it's a nice place that I'm going to be in a nice hotel, she'll go with me. But if it's an hour and a half up the road and I'm coming back that night. She's like, "No, I'll see you when you get back." You know,
Her
so
idea of camping is a Holiday Inn without room service, right?
absolutely a Marriott, sir, not Holiday Marriott.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah. Well, generally my wife goes with me. We're retired, so we got nothing to do. And actually, that's the nice part about this is I had a real job. So this is not something I was making a living at. Never intended to make a living at, and don't. I've got a retirement income. But it's a nice supplement to your retirement.
Sure.
You get to travel around, and I always tell everybody, give them the analogy. I said, look, I said, the guy that hunts or fishes for a hobby, he's never going to catch enough fish, kill enough game to even come close to paying for any of his hobby. Period. Any at least calling us way. That's I make enough. I get some of my travel covered. I get my view is over a year's time, if I can break even or make a little money, then hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I stay mostly in the southeast for that reason because she generally goes with me, which means we travel on the road. I generally take my camper with me. I am a camper. Okay, I like that lifestyle. And so we normally hook the camper up and we head on out. But traveling is getting tough for callers.
Sure.
And as we all know, the travel expenses are just going up, and clubs revenues are not going up.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people, call me every now and then, and I try to work with them as best I can. And say, well, okay, what's your budget? What can you do? And let me see if I can work with you. Okay, if I can book dances going in or coming out or something, in order to make it work, because I know clubs are not, they're not tight with money. They're not running over with money. Okay, so you got to try to work with them. And part of the problem is if you're going off to call a dance somewhere, and okay, it's on a Saturday night. Well, yeah, I can book another dance on Monday, but then I've got the dead time in between. In the dead time, you got to have some place to stay. You got to eat, whatever. And the dead time, once you include all that in there, you're going to lose money on this deal.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you just have to book them. You got to be able to work them in sequence, to make it work. Yeah. And that's getting difficult to do. But I love going and calling for clubs that I don't normally get around. Just because I get to see people. It's like an old home week,
Sure.
That I get to see people I don't get to see that often. Get to call for them, and just, it's great. But now it's like our Pride Week. Now that to us, we've got the best Pride Week up there because ours just starts on Sunday after the Tennessee State Convention.
Oh, that's nice.
So we're already in Gatlinburg, okay? So we get up on Sunday morning, drive 50 miles down the road, and we spend a week, calling. So I'm already up there, and a lot of the dancers that come with us go to Tennessee State Convention.
Right.
You've been there, and so
yes, sir.
I thought you were there last year, were you not?
Yes, sir.
I thought it was.
Yep.
But it's a great convention and a great
it is.
And but so we're because people are already there, so they don't have to travel, go home and then travel back. So it works out great for us.
That's really good.
Head down the road and start over again.
That's outstanding. Yep. I've been to about 9 or 10 state conventions, and Tennessee's probably my favorite of all of them. Good setup, good stuff around it too. So.
Well, they got a great venue. They got a bunch of good callers coming in, great callers that you expect. They got just really great bunch of folks. But to me, and being in Gatlinburg, I mean, hey, who don't want to go spend a weekend in Gatlinburg? I mean,
Yeah.
But to me, Tennessee is more like a regional convention. It's not really a state convention. And
correct.
In some respects, Alabama convention. Even though we have people coming from out of state, we don't have near the people coming that Tennessee does.
Right.
Louisiana is very small by everybody's standards, and so it's pretty much the people in the vicinity there. But the Tennessee State Convention is basically a regional convention, and they get people from all over. And we were going actually the first year that I went to Pride with Jerry called me and says, "Hey, would you come up and do a week with me at Pride?" And of course, again, it was like, "How much you want me to pay you, Jerry?" I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
And it was such an honor for him to call and ask. And so my wife and I, we were heading up there, or looking at going up there, and I looked at it, you know what? That's on Sunday, right after the Tennessee State Convention. I said, well, we just go to the state convention. We'll go up early and go to the state convention. And so we did, and I've been going back every year since then, you know.
Nice.
Now I'll tell you a funny story there. Let me tell you a funny
Yeah, yeah.
story. Was Steve Cotman. Uh, the first, I think it was the first year, maybe the second year I was there. But anyway, I wasn't scheduled in the advanced hall. It was late in the evening, whatever. I was out in the main hall. Someone came out and said, "Hey, they want you in the advanced hall." I said, "Well, I'm not scheduled." They said, "Well, I know, but they want you in the advanced hall." So I go over there, you know, and I'm running. Well, Steve Cotman and Gary Shoemaker were in there calling when I went in there, and they were just finishing up, ready for me to go. Well, the dancers are on the floor in that advanced hall. When they finish, they get back up there quick. They squared up, ready to go, and my computer won't boot up. And so I knew Steve was fixing to head to the main hall where the live band was. So
Mhm.
I just hollered at Steve. I said, "Steve, I need some music." You know, I just patted me. I need some music. So he comes up. Steve was using one of these MP3 players. Now, if there's a way to modify the speed on that thing, I don't know what it is. But anyway, so he brought it up there with something started playing. But I called basically the beat of the music. This thing was going 90 miles an hour. So I called it the beat of the music. Someone
Yeah.
came up afterwards and said, "We really appreciated that hot hash ATEP. Next time you let us know ahead of time."
Oh my goodness.
Because man, I don't know where you got it from, but I no nothing I can do with it except just go with it, you know. So
Oh man, that's fantastic. That's good stuff. Gosh. Yeah, there's a couple of folks in my club. I call every first and third Thursday in Calhoun, Georgia, which is about 50 miles north of me, and in Atlanta. And I've got a couple people that every dance they want me to do just some hot hash at the end. And it was pretty rough the first few times I made a run at it, but I mean, it was my little club, and so everybody was understanding. And now I've gotten pretty proficient at it, and so they have fun with it. So that's awesome.
it's fun for those people that want to dance
Yeah.
that tempo, you know. And there are people
Hot
around
hash
them.
advanced tip. That sounds
Yeah.
outstanding.
I've never done that again, though.
Oh my
Don't
gosh.
intend to.
Well, now, do you call for do you have a club there? Are you a club caller where you are?
Yeah, I am. This was something too that the area down here along the coast of Mississippi is unique in one respect is that very few places use club callers. They just book different people in
Okay.
every week, which was nice when I moved down back into this area because normally when you move into an area, clubs are already established with their club caller, and it's like, you know, pulling eye teeth to get reestablished.
Sure.
Well, it's much easier along here because the clubs didn't use club callers. So I call regularly for clubs from Louisiana uh, through the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. There's a club in Niceville, Florida that I call for them at least one Monday out of the month, sometimes twice. This January I'll be having there twice because they've got a fifth Monday.
Okay.
But square dancing pretty much had died in Mobile. The only thing left at that time was my advanced club that I had here was very small because it just weren't that many people interested in doing advanced.
Yeah.
So I had someone approach me, someone I had knew from square dancing for a number of years, and she had through her church, which the surprising thing to me was growing up in the South here, it was a Church of Christ.
Okay.
But they were going to let us use their facility
Wow.
at no charge. Now, when I was growing up in Church of Christ, you didn't dance in
Yeah,
either.
they're dancing in there. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so they wanted to start a club, and we had the hall. So I said, okay. This was about 2 years ago. We started this club, and we now have we got 72 members in that club. We'll dance 4 to 5 squares depending on who's there. It's a caller run club. First caller run club that I've ever had. Mostly the clubs are there, but to me, a caller run club is the best way to go because I've seen too many clubs that fold and people, because of the politics, you know, involved in the club. These guys come, they dance, they pay their money, they go home. Okay. Now we do have a refreshment list, and they do bring refreshments because they wanted to, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. So instead of everybody bringing something every week, we said, okay, how about we'll set up a list, and so 3 or 4 people any given week will be responsible for the refreshments, and so we do that. But I had the lady that arranged for the church. She said one of the first things out of her mouth was, "Well, we don't need bylaws and a constitution and all this stuff." I said, "No." I said, "It's a call and run club. We don't need that. We don't have any meetings. We don't, And so the dancers can come. It doesn't become a job for them. I've seen too many dancers we've lost over the years because what was fun and what got them in was fun, and then it turned into a job.
Yeah. And
when it turned into a job, it's like, man, I didn't sign up for this. Okay, I'll go find something else to do, kind of thing. So this way with this club, and it's been very successful. And as I say, the church, we use their hall free of charge. They don't charge us anything. We do one dance a year, which is just by donation. People donate whatever they want, and then we give that money to the church.
Church, very nice. Okay.
And, appreciation for letting us use it. We have a room there. We done a lot of recycled square dance clothes or whatever for the new dancers coming in. And when they buy stuff, then we take that money, we give it to the church. So we try to work with them that way. But they have just been unbelievable because in most cases, most places, one of the biggest things of trying to form a club of any kind is being able to find a place to do it.
Yeah, the location, absolutely.
That you can afford. And so this was just like God sent out of heaven, So we got a lot of old dancers that had gotten out of the activity back in.
Nice.
We got a lot of new dancers that have never danced before. And so it's been really good. So that's my local club. That's my Thursday nights, and I very seldom have gone on Thursday nights. Only times I do that, and I try not to, is if I've got a dance on Friday night that I just can't get to on Friday during the day. Okay, that I have to go beforehand. But I try not to do that at all. And so Thursday night I'm here in town, but the rest of the week and everything, if I'm in the area here, it's like Thursday night I'll have a club here. Friday night I'm going to be where am I going to be Friday night? Hell, I don't remember now. I got to be somewhere. But Saturday night I'll be in Slidell, Louisiana. Monday night I'll be over at Agape in Niceville, Florida. But those are within like 100, 120 mile trips, so you can do that easily in an evening. It makes getting home a little late, but not too bad. I don't have a job to go to the next day, so it's okay,
That's awesome.
So I kind of stay with local stuff that way. And then when I do have stuff that's of any distance, but like you all do, I've had people call me from places down in South Florida or whatever. Yeah, hey, could you come down and call a dance for us? And, we don't pay $250 or whatever. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't pay my expenses to drive down there. It's just the way it is. And I think they understand that. I try to make sure they understand that when I do it, because I try to work with clubs, but sometimes you just can't. I mean, you're only going to lose so much money before it's just not something you want to do anymore. So, but I stay busy, 4 or 5 nights a week in the area here, mainly because, like I say, clubs don't use club callers along the coast here, and I think there's pros and cons to that.
Sure.
When I lived in Louisiana before I moved back over here, I had a club up in Picayune, Mississippi, just north of Slidell, and I called there every week, Thursday nights, every week. But at the time I told him, I said, look, that's not really good, in my view, because what happens is too many times I see is that you're using the same caller every week. Those dancers can dance to that caller, but they can't dance to anybody else. I said, now, my view, I think if you're going to dance 4 times a week, I think a 2-and-2 split is really pretty good. twice a week, have somebody outside where they can dance to somebody else. Somebody is going to use different pattern, different choreography, whatever. 2 weeks out of the month, then you got somebody coming in there that can workshop things for you. A lot of dancers run into if you had a guy come in that they don't really know, he calls something and they don't understand it. They're very reluctant to go up to that guy and say, "Hey, I didn't understand this," or "How do you do this?" or whatever. But if you got that guy coming in the next week that's there twice a month, they're very likely to go up to him and say, "Look, he did this, and I don't understand that," and he'll work with it. Okay, so I think to me, a 2-and-2 split is a good split. I don't like having a different caller in every week because it makes it hard for the dancers to get workshops,
Sure.
and bring their level up. But yet, it's also bad to have the same caller every week, particularly with dancers who don't go anywhere else or travel anywhere else to dance to anybody else.
Yep. That's something I've told dancers even before I was really calling a lot. I would tell dancers that that you've got to get out and dance to other people if you want to be better. Because, and I use the example of my buddy Sean Butler over here. We call a lot together, and I think he's 4 months younger than me. So I mean, we're just about identical when it comes to age and everything else. But him saying square through 4 is completely different from me saying square through 4 when we're going. And I try and tell people that, hey, get out and dance to them. The club that I call for, they do dance every Thursday, but I call first and third. And there's another gentleman named Dan Campbell, who's been calling for a long time. And he used to be out of Tennessee. Yep. Dan does second and fourth. And so we alternate and we talk during the week sometimes about, hey, do this or kind of keep an eye on this. And same thing, dancers will go up to him and say, hey, Charlie did this. Can you explain this? And he'll call me, say, yeah. And then same thing, they'll come up, hey, let's do all 8 spin the top. I'm like, all right, because I don't call it a lot, but Dan does. And so we walk through it and things like that. So, yeah, no, I agree 100% on that. It's if you want to be a better dancer, you got to dance to everybody. And same thing with calling, man. And I tell people, go out and listen to people. Get on YouTube and find if it's 14 years ago and it's Jerry Story, listen to his pattern at Pride, And just like you said, just do some research, pick up on something and, figure it out and work it in your own way.
Yeah. And from a caller standpoint, it's not difficult at all for me to get my dancers to dance to me. What I have to do is to get them where they can dance to anybody.
That's right. Yep.
That's the difference. I've seen a lot of callers who are perfectly content to train their dancers where they can dance to them and everybody's happy. But now those dancers are reluctant to go out somewhere else and dance.
Sure. Yep.
But so that caller didn't do his job because he didn't teach them where they feel comfortable and they can dance to anybody.
Yep.
They can dance to him, but they can't dance to other people.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing, a disservice to their dancers. Okay. They need to prepare them to go out. And I tell new dancers sometimes too, I say, look, if you go to a dance, if you're not comfortable, I said, maybe the first tip, just sit there and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the guy. You get kind of tuned in to him and what he's doing and his way of putting it out there. Like you said with Sean, same call, but it sounds different.
Okay? Absolutely. Yep.
If you sometimes with a very new dancer, if you that first step, you just jump on the floor, it might throw you. So if you don't feel comfortable, then maybe sit that first step and just listen, okay, and get tuned in. And the other thing too with new dancers, and I always tell them, and I know you do the same thing, I'm sure. I tell them, you go to a dance, don't dance with the people you always dance with here at your club. Dance with other people. Yep. And dance in the front of the hall, not the back of the hall.
Oh yeah.
The stronger dancers are in the front of the hall,
always
not the back of the hall. The new dancers, for some reason, think, well, if I get in the back of the hall, then he can't see me. Okay, so if I mess up, he can't see me. And if I dance with the same people I dance with every week, if I make a mistake, they'll understand. Okay. Yeah. But that's you're hurting yourself. Don't do that. Yeah. Don't do that. And so I try to tell dancers to do that. And sometimes I have success, sometimes I don't.
No, I understand.
You try.
I tell you, that's a lot of like the club that I call for. We're at a gymnasium and we're in just a room. It's a flat room. I don't have a stage or anything, and I'm 5'6" on a good day, maybe 5'7" if I grow my hair out some. But if I've got a tall couple as my number one, and I tell them, I'm like, "Yeah, can y'all, I can't see everybody. But I just did a dance this past weekend and they did have a stage. And I said that the first thing I did, I said, I can see y'all in the back. And that way they know. And during the night, I'll call out if I know the people's names or their club. I'm like, yeah, I see you back there, Hot Atlanta, because I had a square of them going back there. So, yeah, definitely you want to get into the front where the faster, more proficient dancing is, but you want to dance with different people for sure. So
because that's where you make your friends. That's the social aspect of square dance. You socialize with these people you dance with every week at your club, okay? Go out and meet new people. I mean, gosh, the thing, Charlie, about square dancing to me is I look back and the number of people that I consider close friends that I would never have met had it not been for square dancing. I mean, it's just I feel blessed that I've had this activity in order to be able to meet these people. But you talk about the stage thing. I always tell the dancers, I said, now I've got the stage here. Now y'all all have to look up to me.
Yeah. Very nice. I agree. Yeah, no, I can retire this year coming up, or this year now, from police work. And I've been doing it for a long time, but outside of police work, and I have quite a few friends in the department, but outside of that, besides two buddies that I hunt with that I went to basically grew up with in Savannah, everybody else is square dancers or square dance callers. So I don't know where I would be relationship wise with friends, callers, or, male, female, whatever, if not for square dance, had I not picked up the calling part of it. So 90% of the people I talk to on the phone are square dance callers on a regular basis. Other than that, I'm texting people. Yeah. It's tough texting square dance callers because, I want to ask them something, and me trying to type out, hey, corner box, this, and this, it's easier to say it. So.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of texting. I do it, but I'd rather, most of the time, particularly with like callers, like you say, I'd rather call and talk to them because one thing is obviously going to lead to another, and you're going to have this long conversation. And if you're having to try to type it in all the time, and I'm not the world's best typist, okay?
I got you.
And sometimes some of the things don't come out quite right,
Yeah.
but I always tell everybody too. I said the one thing about square dancing is that I always wanted a job where I could tell people where to go. Now I have one.
I tell people when they find out. I mean, everybody that I call to pretty much now knows what I do or what I've done for my career. And I told them, I said, it's directing traffic. I look out there and I see 8 cars, and my goal is make sure there's no accident in the middle. Just get somebody, move you all around, and keep traffic flowing. So I kind of compare it to that. That's my little bit.
Tell everybody, if you've ever seen it, to me, one of the funniest moves you'll ever see if you ever get a chance to go. And years ago in Mobile, they had a big festival here, the Zaire Trail Festival years ago. In fact, it was the first big dance that I ever went to after I got out of class. And you know how in class they're always telling you, count walls?
Mm-hmm.
That's a round room they were dancing in. So the first
Very nice.
big dance I ever went to in a round room with no walls to count. But in that arena, that civic center, they brought in a wood floor and put down there for the dancers and everything. But up at the top, all the way around, they had hospitality rooms. You go up there and you go down and dance, and you go up there, and every club had a hospitality room. Now this was in the heyday, okay? Mm-hmm. And so you go up there and you eat and rest and whatever, and back down on the floor and dance some more. But the funniest movement I ever saw was, and you can visualize this, a whole floor of dancers, and they get you in lines of 4 and call load the boat. It looked like a bunch of little ants out there, they're scurrying around, and all of a sudden, here you are in this box, It's funny to see, because there's nice straight lines, and load the boat, and everything just goes to hell in a handbasket, and then they wind up there, So
this last national convention, they had that little the callers room up there, and you could look over those 2 floors. And that was fantastic. And plus you get up there and you get to talk, like I say, you can have these conversations about, hey, how do you get through this part of a pattern or something like that. So that was really nice. Yeah. I wish I'd have been calling back then. Of course, I don't know. I was a younger dude back then. So who knows what I'd have been doing.
Yeah. but it was a fun time. Because it was, came up through that kind of, really do miss it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and if we just keep it going and keep it alive for a bit, it is. I think it is coming back to a certain extent
Mhm.
after the pandemic and everything. But it's going to be a slow process.
Sure.
And I don't know that. I feel certain in my lifetime I'll never see it back where it was, and it may not ever get back to where it was. But as long as we can keep it going, I've got a young guy, young by my standards, but I was kidding with Tom Miller the other day. I said, "You know what, Tom?" I said, "I got to start running with a younger crowd." He says, "Every crowd you run with is younger than you." And I saw him, I said, "You're right,
Yeah.
But this guy, he used to clog a bit, but they're not going through classes, but he's probably, I'm gonna guess they're in their 50s, early 50s, which is young, by our
Mhm.
standards. But man, he is so gung ho. And he wants to keep this thing going. He's out recruiting people for our next class already.
Nice.
Because he says, man, we got to keep this going. And I love when you get people like that, man, particularly at that age. In fact, my club I have the age group. The age group goes from 9 to 90,
Jeez,
and
nice.
everything pretty much in between. Um, I have one couple that she was actually married to a caller here in Mobile, and they divorced, whatever. But anyway, but her daughter and her husband and her granddaughter are now going through the classes with me here. So I've
Wow.
got the three generations there. And the little kid, the little girl, 9 years old. Of course, the biggest problem you have with young people is they learn everything so quick.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah.
You don't teach teenagers, you show them.
Mhm.
And then they've got it and it's gone because.
Wow.
And sometimes people over the years, and it took me a while to figure out why that was. But the several things. One, they don't have any physical limitations that a lot of older
Right.
people do. They're in school all day and they're used to taking instruction. They're used to listening.
Yeah.
That thing that we try to tell everybody to do. And most adults, you go to your job, you do it. Nobody sits there and says, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Your mind is not in that learning mode.
Yeah.
The kids are, because that's what they do every day. They're in school. So they just absorb it so much quicker with everybody else. I said the first club I ever called for was a teenage club. And best dancers in the world, easiest to teach. But if you went there that one night to call for them, if they wanted to dance, they're the best dancers to call for you'd ever find. But if they wanted to just play around, you might as well load your stuff up and go home. I mean, it's just the way kids are.
Attention span. Yep. Yeah.
But they are easy to teach.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Kennedy, we've been going for about an hour and 20. And that's, man, and I go into my podcast, especially when I haven't had the opportunity to have any real long conversation. And we've met a couple times, but never really had a conversation before. So yeah, I got everything I was looking for. I got to know more about you, and I'm going to get to know more about you in about 4 weeks when we're on the cruise together. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Man, the advice and everything you've done, I make notes. I just constantly just write down notes and what everybody tells me. And a lot of the people that listen to this, that make comments to me or call me on the phone, they're like, hey, the advice stuff, keep going, love that. So Ted, I couldn't ask for anything more out of that, man. This was phenomenal. I'd love to talk some more. I know you got more stories. And so we'll absolutely sit down sometime mid-year after we get done with this cruise and get the nationals and the caller labs and all out of the way. But it has been my pleasure to talk to you tonight, sir.
It's been mine, Charlie. I appreciate the opportunity and I appreciate your efforts to put this podcast together, because this is not something that's easy to do. But if you go back, people will go back and look through those and watch them. There's a lot of good advice there.
There is
a lot of callers, and so you can put it all together, and so it's a really good service. I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you for saying that, sir. It's my pleasure to do it. I try and get one out every week. This one will be this Friday because I didn't do anything over the holidays. So I'm going to get it all edited up tonight and everything with the little open and all that. And so look for it this Friday. And I won't bump into you again because I'm not traveling anywhere this month other than we hit the road February 1st. We're going down. We're staying in Daytona. And I've forgotten, and I'm probably going to catch hell for it. Jet and someone have a dance the night before the cruise.
Jet and Ted.
Is it Jet and Ted?
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't.
Tony and Jack.
Tony and Jack are up the road. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to Jet and Ted's dance the night before. Yeah. So we're going to get down a day early to mess around on the beach. So
we're heading over on Friday. And I'm gonna stop and visit some folks in Panama City, do a dance in Panama City, and then we're driving on over to Jacksonville on Saturday, staying over with some friends of ours who are going on the cruise with us, and then Sunday we're just gonna drive down from there. So, but we'll see you down there, buddy, and y'all be safe. All right,
Ted, it's a pleasure, buddy. I'll see you in a few weeks.
Okay, take care.
Talk to you soon. Yeah, man. Bye bye.
4 ladies chained over and back, I still feel 25 most of the time. Left Alabama and girl, go side door. Left Alabama weave the ring. I was a young troubadour, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Well, now the heads promenade and go halfway, walking square through, all the way, and then you'll swing through, my friend. Boy, running a Ferris wheel, now the center square through to 3, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Alright. Well, now the heads promenade and go halfway, walking square through.
Better?
All the way, and then you swing through.
Yeah, that's much better.
Boy, running a Ferris wheel, now the center square through to 3, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. 4 ladies promenade one time. Get home, swing that man.
He's gonna scare him if I sing with him.
Join hands, circles, the left go round. Left out man, weave the round. I was a young troubadour, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Here we go, sides. Well, now the sides promenade and go halfway, walking square through, all the way, and then you'll swing through, my friend. Boy, running a Ferris wheel, now the center square through, get 3, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. One more time, side. Well, now the side promenade and go halfway, walking square through, all the way, and then you'll swing through again. Boy, running a Ferris wheel, and now the center square through to 3, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Side space. Grand square, still feel 25 most of the time. I still raise a little Cain when the boys left Alabama and we talk some pretty women. Lord, I'm still right there with them, singing above the crowd and the noise. be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Oxendine.
Charlie Petrie, y'all.
Thank y'all for letting me do that. I appreciate that.